Welcome to the Cross Counsel Podcast. We believe every person is created in the image of God, something we can never lose. Yet, over time, our likeness to Christ has been diminished and is in need of restoration. Each episode offers information that invites you toward transformation, leading to formation in Christ. But lasting change happens when you personally engage with our ministry and experience the melt process, where God renews the mind, heals the heart, and restores hope. Together, though none of us has arrived, we're discovering what it means to be fully alive in Him, immediate help, lasting hope, and changing generations. This is the second part of my interview with Hannah. If you haven't listened to episode 177, please go there first to get the context of her inspiring story of God's love and transformation in her life. I did back up the story that she ended with in episode 177 a few minutes just as a refresher to those who tuned in last week.
It was a very just kind of landmark season of my life when we moved to Dubuque. We were mid-pandemic, so all the craziness there across the world. And there were just a number of things going on in Madison where Dwayne and we both felt, all right, if we're going to move, this is the time. Let's go for it. So we put our house on the market and it sold in a matter of weeks. I found a job in Dubuque pretty much right away. So everything, like, God was leading. I would say the biggest reason, though, like why I wanted to move personally, is it felt like I was slowly dying inside, watching what was playing out in my brother's life at the time. So I'll change his name here just to respect his privacy. We'll call him Jay, but the brother who is closest in age to me, he's 4 years older than me. He got released from prison right around that time, like when COVID-19 was in full force and we had the shutdowns going on. He was released after serving 10 years in prison and pretty much immediately fell right back into the lifestyle of drug addiction, starting with cocaine and then moving on to methamphetamine. And my oldest brother, we'll call him Matt, he lived with him for a while, and he says it was like living in hell. It was a drug house, people coming and leaving, needles all over the place, just trashed. And I will never forget it. There was one night, so to back up, I was staying at my parents' house after we sold our house in Madison, and then we had about a month before we could get into the house in Dubuque. And I also was finishing up my job at Meriter Hospital at that time. So I was at my parents' house, and my brother Matt came in one night, my oldest brother, and I'll never forget the look on his face. He was wide-eyed. He said, "Hannah, I just very nearly witnessed my our younger brother die," and I'll call him K. So he had gotten some cocaine from my brother Jay, one of his drug dealers, and it was laced with fentanyl, and so he overdosed. And the only reason that he's still with us, it was home at that time. He could hear my brother Jay talking to his friend, like, "Hey, let's get him into the bathtub." And he heard that, and he was like, "What's going on in here?" He busted into the room, and he could see that Kay's lips had turned all blue. He immediately called an ambulance, and we got him revived, and he's back with us. So that was right before I moved to Dubuque. Once I did move to Dubuque, a few months in, my youngest brother, Kay, called me one time, and he said that my brother Jay, who had gotten back into the drug abuse, he was stranded in Iowa. He was near me, and he needed to be picked up. And so it turns out he had stolen a car, my cousin's car, with his girlfriend. And she was a drug addict, kind of got him into down this this road a little bit further. So it was really turning into be a deep hole for him. So they stole a car, they stole my cousin's guns, and they drove us across state lines into Iowa. And I didn't know any of this at the time when I got the call from my youngest brother. So I just called my brother Jay to check in and see if he needed my help, to see what was all going on. And when I called him, his girlfriend picked up the phone and she proceeded to tell me the whole story of, well, not the whole story, just part of it, how they had gone to visit her family in Iowa and they'd gotten in a fight. And so she ditched him and left him in this town that was about 40 minutes from me. And she told me that I needed to go and pick him up because she was not going to go back for him. She was scared for her safety. But before I was to go pick him up, she wanted me to meet up with her to get his phone so I could return his cell phone to him. And so we did. We arranged to meet at a casino in Dubuque that was pretty close to my house. And I just had a really bad feeling about everything I was hearing, everything that was, it wasn't all adding up in my mind. So I went to meet her. I got the phone, but then I decided to drive through the parking garage that was attached to the casino. And that's when I discovered that they were driving my cousin's car. I knew that his car had been missing because he had reached out to me and told me that earlier in this timeline. So I immediately left and went home, and I was very panicked and full of fear because I didn't know how this was all going to play out. I felt like kind of trapped between two different parties, my cousin, my brother. But I did wind up calling the police to report the stolen car. And turns out the girlfriend did go back. She drove back to where she had left my brother Jay, and the cops picked them both up that night for the stolen vehicle, the stolen guns, and they had been doing quite a bit of drugs. That whole kind of was like a party weekend for them. So I guess my brother Jay, I think he was very close to dying. I think he had kind of overdosed on some stuff too that night. Months later, he was sentenced to 9 years in federal prison for that. And when I heard the judgment come down, it was like another heart shock. Just it hit me hard. I was speechless. I had to go out and walk to process it and pray. I felt really sad, obviously, but also mixed in that was a lot of guilt and shame. Like I was blaming myself, really. Like I was somehow responsible for how things had turned out in my brother's life. Yet I was also powerless to stop it. So it was such a mixture of emotions, a lot of lies wrapped up in there too, to have me feeling those emotions of self-blame and self-hatred. That all came up recently. I've been processing that more because we're talking 4 years ago, right? This summer, God really started tapping me on the shoulder to show me that he wanted me to deal with just this heavy sadness that I carried for my brother. And also I was feeling a lot of anxiety and panic and just feeling out of control, like out of all areas of my life, just between having a very crazy, busy, demanding job, then having the demands of little kids at home. Just everything was triggering me where I felt out of control and I was feeling very anxious and panicked, just like pressure all the time. So it was really robbing me of my joy and my peace. And so there was one thing that happened this summer that God really used to open things up for me, to free me. We get CSA boxes in the summer, which is a community shared agriculture. So we get a box of vegetables like every other week. And I was getting some celery out, and I was about to chop off the top the celery, and this shiny green, beautiful, tiny little chrysalis caught my eye. And I've never seen one of those up close, a monarch chrysalis. And it was just gorgeous. So I saved it. I mean, I almost had thrown this out, but I saved it. I put it in a little mason jar, and we were gonna see if we could watch the butterfly come out, watch us hatch. And then I also started learning more about the whole process of transformation. It set me on this journey of watching videos and, geeking out essentially. And I never knew this, but it turns out the chrysalis is the final molting stage. It's actually the new skin of the caterpillar. And I was fascinated by that. I was watching videos of the caterpillar turning into a chrysalis, and it's a pretty painful, like slow process. They go and they hang from like a branch or a celery stalk in this case, and to molt that last skin, it takes work. Like they are working all of their abdominal muscles to push that skin off and work it. It works its way up the caterpillar's body up to the top, and then finally it pops off, and then they transform into this chrysalis, which is the resting stage. It was just this beautiful analogy for me of our struggle is to enter the rest that God has for us, to release these old ways of thinking, to die to old patterns. That's the effort, is to enter into that resting state where God can really truly work on us and transform us. And the caterpillar actually has everything it needs on the inside of it to turn into this butterfly. It's got the wing buds on the inside of it. Wow. It just has to get to that stage of being transformed, of allowing the transformation to happen.
You did geek out.
I did, yes. It was incredible. So we saved this chrysalis, and I was determined to watch the butterfly come out, because after watching these videos, I was like, I want to see this transformation happen. And so we kept it on the counter. We took it camping with us because I didn't want to miss it. And then finally one morning I got up and I saw that it had turned all black. And I was like, oh no, it got diseased and it died. But turns out that that's what happens when it's very close to emerging. So again, another picture of death. Death has to happen before transformation. And so you actually could start to see the wings through the chrysalis, like the black wings of the monarch. So I was getting really excited, but it was a morning where it was a busy, crazy summer morning. I had both kids. We had to run errands. We had to get groceries. I had to get ready for my son's birthday party. So we got home, and I was setting the grocery bags down, and my breath caught, because there the butterfly was sitting outside of its cocoon in the jar. And I was captivated by its beauty, but I felt so much disappointment. Like, I missed it. And I wanted to see it so badly. So I was really beating myself up about it that whole day. Like, if I would have just not been so busy, if I would have paid attention. And God's still small voice just kind of dropped in and said, you see, you don't have to be there for transformation to happen. And it melted my heart, because immediately I thought of my brother, Jay, who's in prison. I haven't seen him in 4 years, Steve. I don't know what's going on with him, what's going on inside of him. But I felt like that release, I don't have to be there for God to be working on his life and transforming him. And so that was an encouragement to me, and it kind of broke me wide open to be like, okay, God, I'm going to go after this in sessions with you. I clearly am hanging on to control here. I'm hanging on to my brother. I'm feeling like the pressure, like I'm somehow responsible and I need to fix things and I need to save them. Um, and so that kind of cracked it wide open for me this summer. And I started really facing down those negative emotions and going after it in sessions with my good friend.
Hmm. So I think that's a
So
really good example of the different levels that God meets us at. And who knows how you were able to receive that because of some of the deeper level things that you've done through this process. But that even, and to say surface level doesn't do it justice. I love how you said breakthrough. And I think God wants to do that for anybody who's ready for that. But if that's all it is, and you know better because you just said it, you want to keep going after those deeper things. If that's all it is, it can be a really sweet encouragement from the Lord, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's deeply transformational, deeply awesome, deeply
right.
encouraging, deeply
Yeah.
inspiring. Wow, how many messages or songs have we heard where we're really inspired, but it doesn't really have a lasting change? I like how
Yeah.
you said you're going to continue to go after it.
Yeah. Like God used it to really tap me on the shoulder and show me like, hey, there's something going on here.
Mm-hmm.
You need to look at this. Because I had been carrying heavy sadness. Like anytime my mom would talk about him, I just would kind of shut down inside and not want to hear it just because it felt too heavy and too hard. Um, and sadness it's a true emotion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sad things happen and it's okay to feel sad about those things. But I learned actually through our class and some things that we were discussing in our Monday night peer group that God didn't design us to carry that for the rest of our lives. Like it's something to be felt for a season, but the only thing that holds it in place is that we are lacking a bigger perspective. We're lacking God's perspective on things. And so I was that kind of pushed me to go after this too, like realizing like I'm not supposed to hang on to this for the rest of my life. Okay.
And that led you to going to a memory you'd already been to before. Would you mind sharing about that?
Yes. So I was praying with my girlfriend one night, deciding to go after this feeling of being out of control and panicked. Uh, and I landed in a memory of being baptized. My brother and I, so the brother who's closest in age to me and in prison now, we were both signed up to be baptized. And I went through with it, and he did not. And I remember coming out of the water just feeling joy, feeling so much lightness. But immediately my eyes were drawn to see how he was not getting baptized. And it was like that joy just got quenched and taken from me. And I was in the memory, I was reliving going home in the car and feeling that heavy sadness. And God showed me in that memory, he gave me this powerful visual of how I was holding on to this rope. Like, it was like this big, heavy tug of war rope. And the other end was attached to my brother. And I'm holding on to it. And I'm just feeling this pressure to hold on to it and to pull and to somehow bring my brother back. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, I don't feel like I can drop it because that would feel irresponsible. But it's also just too heavy, too exhausting for me to hold. So I asked Jesus, what do you want me to do with this rope? And he said, hand the rope to me. And there was such an immense relief when I heard that in my heart because it felt like I wasn't being irresponsible. I wasn't just like stopping to care about my brother, but I was giving the responsibility of his life into the hands of somebody so much bigger and stronger and competent than me. And he showed me that that's what he wants me to do with all the relationships in my life, including my own life. Like hand hand the rope to him.
Mm.
Trust him that he can carry it and he can hang on to everyone that I can't. So there was a lot of freedom in that. And the test is, okay, how does it translate to your current life?
Mm-hmm.
Do you sense a difference? Do you sense freedom? And I can tell you that Sunday after having that session, it was baptism Sunday at my church, of all
It's
things.
awesome.
Yes. The timing. So here I am watching these baptisms. And before, whenever I would watch baptisms, Steve, I would have such a mixture of emotions where it's like, yeah, I'm happy, but also like, I know I should be happy, but I also feel kind of like the sadness and this heaviness. And I knew it was related to that memory with my brother. So for the first time watching,
Had you always known that, or was it through doing this process and the first time that you revisited it, or was that something that you were actually conscious of during baptisms? The connection.
I think that's a good question. I think I knew of it for years because of um, actually because of this process and learning how it works.
Mm-hmm.
But I've known for a while that was definitely one of those landmark memories for me, because that was the point in my life where it really felt like my brother's life and my life started to diverge, and he went on a very different track from me. That kind of felt like the dividing line in the sand. So I always knew that was a big deal. Maybe for a while there, it was more subconscious with actually watching baptisms, until I made that connection as an adult. But yeah, there's always kind of that mixture of emotions there. Until this past Sunday, I can tell you, I watched those baptisms and I felt that lightness and that joy in my heart that I felt as that little girl coming out of the water myself. And I have not felt that in a long time. There was freedom there.
Wow, like there was a wall just a few minutes after that beautiful moment as a kid that kept you from really experiencing how much joy that was there. That's not that wall is gone now.
Yeah.
So trying to save everybody, rescue everybody, thinking that we have, this responsibility to save the world. If someone is listening to this podcast that's maybe recognizing that or has known that for a while, what would you want them to take from your story?
I'd want them to know, hey, we're not going to do this perfectly. I'm not going to do this perfectly. God has had to remind me to hand the rope over to him. I think it's a daily process. I'm just so thankful to him for giving me that word picture, because it was powerful. And so now pretty much every day I've been saying, Jesus, I hand the rope over to you. I think that's why scripture says to pray without ceasing and cast all your cares upon him, because he cares for you. Just my way of doing that is I'm going to track down, face those negative emotions that are stealing my joy and my peace, and take them to Jesus and ask him, Lord, what do you want me to know about this? What's your truth? What's your perspective? Because there's so much freedom. The truth really does set you free when you receive it from Jesus.
I think that response also fits into where we're going with Cross Counsel, where it's three different legs of the ministry. Is the idea of people need to know the information. There are so many things that people who have even been believers for a long time don't understand about biblical truth, who Jesus is primarily, and what he did to come to save us, like the significance of that, not to mention who we are in Jesus, what it means to have our identity in Christ. So there's a lot of information that's really important. The thing that God has especially somehow gifted us with is the idea of transformation, going into some of those memories, not for the sake of just going to memories, but to identify what we're really believing and allowing him to persuade us into the truth in our hearts. And then the formation part, which is still a work in progress at Cross Counsel. But just that, even that idea that you are making a conscious choice to have your eyes focused on heaven, to say, Lord, I don't want to hold on to this rope anymore, and this intentionality that you have in your walk with Jesus, to say, I don't want to carry anything that's not mine to carry, but I'm ready to carry anything that you've called me to.
Yeah.
I think that's huge in our formation, in our process of growing with him. So is there anything else that you want to share?
I just love actually a comment that you made in one of our classes, and you kind of stumped us, Steve. You asked us, is our goal peace? Are we pursuing peace? And we're all kind of like, yeah. But no, we're not pursuing peace. We're pursuing Jesus, because Jesus is the source of peace, and he's the source of truth. So I'm not after I'm not after an idea or a logical piece of truth. I'm after the actual person of Jesus and his presence there in my life, in those places where I didn't see him before, because he's beyond time. So when he meets us in a memory, he's actually there in real time in that memory, and his presence changes things, transforms us.
Exactly. It's like, it's better to be with Jesus in the eye of the storm than to be anywhere else, like even calm by yourself. And I think what you just said is reflective of that. It's like that we're pursuing Jesus in his presence. So it's not just this theoretical idea that Jesus is with you in the eye of the storm, but it's a reality that more and more becomes just evident in your life and naturally supernatural. It's good stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
Anything else that, as you look ahead, anything that gives you hope for what's next?
I'm most excited to be doing this with my kids, like doing it from day one with them. And I've already had the chance to sort of do this with my son, Dax. He'll come home from school sometimes saying, this kid was mean to me, or they said this. And I'll go after it. I'll be like, well, how did that make you feel? And what did you wind up believing about yourself there? And then I'll always finish with like, well, what does Jesus say about you? And he's where your true source, your true identity comes from. So I'm excited to see how this shapes their lives and their relationship with Jesus and how it grows. So, but I'm also excited to do this with friends and family too.
Right. That's a pretty good mic drop moment. Thank you so much, Hannah, for being on the podcast.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Cross Counsel podcast. We invite you to visit crosscounsel.com to learn more about genuine healing and becoming a more useful instrument in God's kingdom purposes. Be sure to like, subscribe, rate, and share this podcast. It helps others discover the same potential for hope and healing found only in Jesus. Again, thank you for listening.